Spark Books here. Today, I'm going to explain the book, The Relationship Cure, by Joan Gottman, PhD and Joan DeClaire. Take care, enjoy the book, and have a nice day. The Relationship Cure 2000 prescribes a surprisingly simple solution to the problems that ail many of our relationships. Drawing on psychologist Joan Gottman's extensive research, its insights and tips are equally applicable to relationships between romantic partners, friends, family members, and co-workers. Key idea number 1. Opening up doesn't make friends. What makes a relationship joyful, healthy, and close? Right? Dr. Gottman agreed. He worried the whole endeavor was a waste of time. After watching the footage for months, he saw something. In all those mundane chats, he saw the key to close relationships. How the couples talked mattered more than what they talked about. This lesson applies to all relationships, romantic or otherwise. You're not alone if you think it's sharing your deepest thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Many psychologists, including one of the authors, thought so in the early 1990s. However, his research startled him and many psychologists. Opening up doesn't create intimate connections. Dr. John Gottman and his University of Washington colleagues founded an unusual scientific research facility in 1990. Love Lab was its name. It was a typical studio apartment with a kitchen, eating area, hideaway bed, TV, and canal views. The next year, they invited 60 married couples to this quaint setting for a weekend. Each pair was told to live normally. There was a catch. For cameras and a two-way mirror monitored the couples for 12 hours a day in the residence. Microphones and body sensors monitored stress signals including heart rate and sweat. Dr. Gottman filmed hundreds of hours of couples' conversations. He searched the footage for examples of partners opening up. Despite searching, he discovered little self-disclosure. Most exchanges were "Honey, could you bring me a cup of coffee?" "Yes." "Look, a comic strip." "Quiet, I'm reading." Right? Dr. Gottman agreed. He worried the whole endeavor was a waste of time. After watching the footage for months, he saw something. In all those mundane chats, he saw the key to close relationships. How the couples talked mattered more than what they talked about. This lesson applies to all relationships, romantic or otherwise. Key idea number 2. Bids are the basic emotional units. A wife asking her spouse for coffee doesn't seem dramatic. But imagine being the wife. Instead of answering "Sure, honey," your spouse snapped, "Go get it yourself." Dr. Gottman concluded that these bids and the 3 responses are the foundation of emotional communication and human connection. As you'll see, bids and bid responses may create or break partnerships. Is it noticeable? The first scenario shows a loving family dynamic. The second is like "Why we got a divorce" replay. The distinction is a bid and your partner's response. The point: bids are the basic emotional units. The authors define a bid as any verbal or nonverbal attempt to connect emotionally. "Did you see the game last night?" "Well, that's sunset." A smile or a chair offer. The bid's message is the same regardless of its appearance or content. "Hey, I want to connect." The other person might then accept, reject, or ignore the bid. You want to tell a buddy about an interesting news story. "Hey," you say. You bid. Imagine your friend enthusiastically asks, "What's up?" He accepted your offer and responded positively. Instead, your pal stares at his phone, pretending not to hear you. "Do you know what time it is?" He asks to change the subject. He's disregarding or sidestepping your offer. "Ugh, can't you tell I'm in the middle of something?" he says. This negative response is turning against your bid. Dr. Gottman concluded that these bids and the 3 responses are the foundation of emotional communication and human connection. As you'll see, bids and bid responses may create or break partnerships. Key idea number 3. Bids often conceal messages. How's your day? Do you have plans tonight? These are simple queries. They may appear like small conversation. Each attempt to connect emotionally can enhance or weaken a relationship. Thus, our bid's ambiguity often benefits us. As we'll see, it can also cause issues. These questions are crucial because they go deeper than they appear. Mary and Jeff, a passionate couple, lounge on their living room sofa. "It's a touch chilly in here," Mary remarks to Jeff. Her bid. Bids often conceal messages. Look underneath this simple interaction to begin deciphering its hidden message. Mary doesn't only want to tell Jeff she's cold or see whether he agrees. Mary wants Jeff to cuddle her. Thus, she wants him to become closer to her. Why doesn't she say, "Hey, Jeff, cuddle me"? We occasionally bid openly. We normally make them more subtle and vague for good cause. Mary can avoid embarrassment if Jeff rejects her physical intimacy by phrasing it as a temperature remark. Imagine Jeff saying, "No, I'm not in the mood," to her request for a snuggle. Ouch! However, if he throws her a blanket, she won't get what she wants. However, she is receiving something pleasant, which is better than rejection. Mary is helping Jeff gracefully decline her offer. If he'd prefer not cuddle her, he doesn't have to say no. He can answer literally to Mary's statement. Thus, our bid's ambiguity often benefits us. As we'll see, it can also cause issues. Key idea number 4. Carefully understand bids' hidden messages. We've focused on simple bids thus far. "It's a bit chilly in here, don't you think?" Has hidden meanings. They're not hard to understand. Concealed messages aren't hidden. Relationships would be easier if all bids were simple. Bids are hard to respond to. They're rarely bids. Bids' hidden signals can be hard to decipher, so answer cautiously. We all have emotions we can't articulate constructively. We can't express our emotions if we don't comprehend them. When a youngster throws a tantrum because her father won't purchase her a toy, it may be a plea for consolation. "Why don't you ever call me when you're at work?" is a loaded question a spouse asks his wife to encourage more communication. Poorly expressed, but a bid. Bids might sound like laments, criticisms, or complaints when people are sad, angry, or afraid. They're hard to spot and handle. Remember this and check beneath the other person's words. Imagine being the parent or wife in these instances. Instead of defending your decision to not buy the gift, cuddle the youngster and accept her need for comfort. Instead of grumbling that you're too busy at work to call your spouse, schedule a brief call to acknowledge his need for communication. Focusing on the bid can help you find a method to reply that builds relationships rather than turning away from or against it. Key idea number 5. Knowing bidders' motivations helps. As we've seen, bids are often confusing statements of unmet emotional wants and desires, even to the bidder. Maybe that psychology PhD is handy. Even without grad school, you can improve your bid interpretation by understanding other people's emotions. This article will show one way to get it. The takeaway: understanding bidders' motivations helps. Have you ever fought with someone and felt like you were fighting a third person who wasn't there? Rick and Sarah, a doctor, Gottman-treated couple, experienced that. His grandmother reared Rick when his mother left. She hated caring for him and told him he was useless. He had low self-esteem, which harmed his relationship with Sarah. Rick heard his grandmother every time she criticized his actions. Rick heard Sarah say, "You can't do anything right," when she was furious with him for watching TV instead of talking to her. Sarah, one of 7 siblings, was raised in poverty and taught to keep her demands to herself. She did it in her relationship with Rick for a week or 2, then vented her displeasure. The TV was her attempt to connect with Rick, but she came out as bitter and accusatory. We all have relationship baggage like Rick and Sarah. Our emotional legacy affects our relationships, whether we realize it or not. Thus, understanding someone's background will help you analyze their bids. Key idea number 6. Consider your needs and use soft words when bidding. Let's review. First, casual contacts often seek emotional connection. Second, bids typically conceal messages. Third, emotional heritage and past interactions influence these underlying meanings. Remember this and learn more about your loved ones to improve your bid responses. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful while making bids and rely on others to understand. There are ways to be understood and meet your emotional needs, a win-win for everyone. Bids should represent your needs and be expressed in soft language. Knowing what you desire helps you get it. Bids 2. When you're about to argue or complain, ask yourself, what's my unmet emotional need? It often stems from a basic human desire, like feeling safe. If a wife doubts her husband's decision to buy a gun for the family, she may be concerned about what would happen if a child gets it. If so, she should communicate her worry instead of saying weapons are harmful. Instead of arguing about the right to bear arms, the couple can address her worries and find a compromise, like buying a lockbox to put the gun out of reach. Softening a bid also improves its acceptability. One author waited for supper with his family while his wife worked in the basement. He yelled, "Julie, quit! Family time!" Julie reacted defensively, "I can't. I must finish." The author may have started his bid with, "Hey, Julie, we miss you. Come up for dinner with us soon." Imagine Julie's more positive response. Key idea number 7. Your initial bid and bid response provide you more chances to connect. The first bid and bid response in emotional communication are like the start of a friendly tennis match. Like the serve and return volley. If either player misses this initial shot, the game may end. If successful, the action begins. Lunch. Here. When Linda snaps and stares at her computer, depressing Jim. Jim would say something about having lunch again, and Linda might say, "Yeah, sure," but they're done talking and connecting. In a parallel dimension, previous versions of Jim and Linda are smiling over images of her puppy and forming a connection on a park bench. Bids are more than they seem. They can change relationships. Getting your initial bid and bid response right increases your chances of connecting. Let's analyze some emotional communication play by play to comprehend this. Jim and Linda work in the office. "So, do you have any lunch plans?" Jim asks Linda at her desk. Linda says she brought something from home and will eat outside. She turns toward the bid, understanding its hidden meaning. "Join me?" she asks. Jim agrees. He then ups the bid. "I'm heading to the vending machine to get a drink. Anything. Maybe a Coke," Linda says, returning to Jim's offer. "I'll find those photographs too. Let me show you." Jim exclaims, "I'd love to see them." The good replies pile on one another, drawing Jim and Linda closer. Let's imagine Linda rejects Jim's offer. Lunch plans. Jim asks. "Lunch. Here." When Linda snaps and stares at her computer, depressing Jim. Jim would say something about having lunch again, and Linda might say, "Yeah, sure," but they're done talking and connecting. In a parallel dimension, previous versions of Jim and Linda are smiling over images of her puppy and forming a connection on a park bench. Bids are more than they seem. They can change relationships. Key idea number 8. You can answer affirmatively without accepting a proposal. Oh, you may think, do I have to accept every lunch invitation? It sounds like if I decline a bid, or even fail to pick one up, I could damage my connections and push people away. Relax. It's not that bad. You can still connect with others and accept their offers while rejecting those you don't want to accept. Responses matter. To answer affirmatively, you don't have to accept a bid at face value. Jim and Linda's lunch arrangements. In this version, Linda can't accept Jim's offer to have lunch today because she doesn't have time. But she can still accept the offer. "Oh, I'd love to have lunch with you, but I'm so inundated with work right now," she may remark. "Tomorrow, we might meet for coffee after work." Linda acknowledges her wish to connect with Jim while declining this opportunity. She suggests other ways to communicate. Instead of rejecting Jim, she calls him closer. Jim can now accept one of her options and continue his offer. He could bring her food, allowing her extra time to finish that mountain of work. Any bid that requires you to do something you can't or won't does the same. Instead of worrying about accepting it or saying no and hurting your friendship, reassure the other person of your want to connect. Tennis. Saying no this manner keeps that friendly communication ball going over the net. Key idea number 9. Our bid responses can affect our relationships over time. Consider your recent contacts with loved ones. Did you comply or refuse? No, you don't have to be perfect, but most of the time is a good objective. Don't stress over your reaction. A bid won't make or break your relationship. Bids and bid responses build or break relationships. However, your acts add up, so don't become harsh. The takeaway: our bid response patterns can affect our relationships over time. If one or both partners consistently react unfavorably to each other, the relationship will likely end. Positive patterns bring them closer. 2 reasons. First, accepting each other's offers increases connection prospects, while rejecting them does the opposite. Like Jim and Linda, it can determine whether you have lunch with your coworker. Second, bids and responses send concealed messages. Accepting a bid implies I value you. I enjoy your company. However, rejecting a bid may send unintentional messages like I don't appreciate you or I want to hurt you. Repeat these messages until the other person sees a pattern that reflects your feelings for them. If it's positive, they'll like you, which can aid in disagreements. If it's too nasty, they may think you dislike them and stop trying to connect. Why bother? Thus, negative bid responses strongly predict marital issues. The scientists found that 82% of heterosexual spouses react unfavorably to their wives' attempts for connection. Stable marriages reduce that to 19%. No, you don't have to be perfect, but most of the time is a good objective. When others communicate with you, they typically try to connect. You must carefully analyze these bids, which may be ambiguous or veiled as complaints or criticism. Remember that your bid decision can affect your relationships.
To view more content like this, subscribe. Don't forget to like and turn on notifications. The channel really benefits from it. I appreciate you being here.